Hey, what's up guys? It's Stopwatch Studios here. I'm sure a lot of people won't care, but today I'm going to be looking over my box of dinosaur things, my chest full of dinosaur toys. Now, in this collection you'll find some cheap toys, some nice good quality, slightly more paleo-accurate toys, and a few classic Jurassic Park Kenner toys, which I'm very fond of. So, let's begin, shall we? First item. So, this fellow is a little Playmobil abomination I made as a child using bits of my brother's Playmobil toys. Now, of course, as you'll know, as you can probably see, this isn't actually a dinosaur, but I thought I'd just include him as a bonus because he's very nostalgic to me. Now, originally he was much simpler. His arms were little weedy things. These were his legs, obviously. He still had the same torso and head from, I think, what was some kind of sea monster Playmobil. The head really makes it what it is, but the rest was added later on. So, like this. He's got an extra head now. Slightly more monstrous head, just kind of sticking on the end of one of his arms. On the other end, he's got this little scepter weapon, which I think he's had since, like, the beginning as well. You'll notice he doesn't actually have proper Playmobil hands, but that's because he's kind of just made out of bits and bobs. He's also got a little scorpion tail at the back here, so I think that's pretty cool. Might be poisonous. And his name was Evil Zurg, inspired by the name of Buzz Lightyear's arch nemesis, Emperor Zurg. It's not a very creative name. I'd love someone to suggest a better name in the comments, maybe. You know, something cooler for this guy. But basically, he's an all-powerful being. He's more powerful than any other being ever. And he just captures heroes and villains from different dimensions and puts them in games and makes them fight each other. He's kind of like Jigsaw from the Jigsaw films, but on like a cosmic level. So yeah, if anybody's got any better names, I'd be more than willing. I mean, this guy likes Solo, Superman, and Omni-Man at the same time. And Iron Man. Yeah. So anyway, moving on to the actual dinosaurs. That we have all the high-quality theropod carnivorous dinosaurs. Ooh. Okay, so first off, we've got the carnivorous dinosaur that fell down the back over there. Now, I believe this is an Allosaurus. Okay, I'll admit it's not incredible quality, but I think it's actually pretty good for a toy as cheap as it is. I got it with a friend of mine who's appeared in a couple of my videos, actually. You might recognise him as the one who always dies in the films. His name's Casper Lord. He's the ginger one. So yeah, me and him both got copies of these from the toy shop that's now in my town that's now closed. Yeah, I think his one got chewed up by his dogs. So now my one remains and his doesn't. But yeah, it's an Allosaurus. Pretty cool. No articulation, obviously, besides the mouth. Even then, I think it opens a bit too wide. But that might be because I stretched it. I don't know if it was like this originally. It's pretty cool, but these kind of give it away that it's not supposed to go that wide, really. So yeah, all in all, I'm giving this figure a 5 out of 10. Now we've got a figure that I've had for forever. I don't know when I got this. It was ages ago. I think it's a Papo figure. Maybe it says... No, it's actually a very old Schleich one. I once covered it in bits of Play-Doh, so that is why it's got some odd colouring there. But I think it actually looks kind of cool, if I can get this to focus. You'll see there's a little bit of red colouring there. I think they're either past wounds of the animal, or actually like a little bit of, you know, scale variety, like how iguanas have lots of different colours across their scales. It's obviously heavily inspired by the look of the raptors from Jurassic Park, and much higher quality than the last one we looked at. It's even got a little bit of feathering on its arms here. Tiny bit, it's quite hard to notice. Yeah, so I think it's pretty cool if you want a high quality figure that looks like a Jurassic Park Velociraptor, but isn't. From the front, it looks almost exactly like one. So I'm giving this figure a 7 out of 10. Okay, next we're moving on to the old Schleich Carnotaurus. Since buying this, they've actually replaced it with a better looking one, but I unfortunately don't have that. Now, it's got some pretty funky looking legs here. I'm not sure if the how much these are bent is even scientifically possible. It might be accurate to the skeleton, I don't know. I'm not very familiar with this species. Obviously, like most slice toys, it doesn't have any articulation besides the mouth, but all in all, it looks very good and definitely very much like the Carnotaurs from Disney's Dinosaur. So it's very difficult to get your hands on an actual Carnotaurus figure from the original line of Disney dinosaur toys. So this is probably the best you can get. You can, the closest. You could probably do like a paint job on the face to make it like a grey colour so it actually matches the one in the film. But yeah, all in all, I'm going to give this figure a 6 out of 10. Now we have an absolute classic, the Papo T-Rex figure. This one goes along with their other figure, which I think is far more sort of rugged looking. It's got sort of a bony structure to it. It's covered in spikes. It looks a bit more rugged, but they're both clearly heavily inspired by the Jurassic Park T-Rex. I mean, it's obvious. You can't miss it. I mean, look at that. Come on, that's just. This could be an officially licensed Jurassic Park toy. I wouldn't even flinch. Oddly, this figure has no Made in China label on it, which is very odd, considering usually they do. Hang on a minute. Never mind, it does have a Made in China label. It's hidden quite well, though. They're usually around here, and they're quite obvious. So, yeah, all in all, I really like this figure. I did, unfortunately, break off its hand a little while ago. Oh, more than a little while ago, a few years ago. But I'm very happy with it, and it's one of my favourite figures, and it brings back a lot of memories. Very good articulation in the mouth. It doesn't stretch too much. And all in all, it's great if you want to recreate a scene from Jurassic Park. It's a good model for that. So, yeah, moving on. I'm going to rate this figure an 8 out of 10. Okay, now we're getting into the more recent ones. So this is a Giganotosaurus, or Giganotosaurus, depends on how you want to spell it. I think it's supposed to be a juvenile because Slice also does a much bigger, larger adult one, which looks quite different. They don't really look the same, but honestly, young animals don't really look the same as their adult counterparts. I personally really like this figure. I think the coloration really makes it, especially this little stripe at the top. It's got a nice bit of articulation in the mouth, even though it might be a bit stiff, and it doesn't really close enough. Yeah, it's got a very nice tail position. I like the position is more peaceful. It's not necessarily hunting. And I'm very happy about this figure. I think it was a good purchase, so I'm going to rate this figure an 8 out of 10. Another raptor coming along. I think this might be a Deinonychus, or maybe a Dromaeosaur, possibly a Utah raptor. I'll just quickly check if it perhaps says. Nope, doesn't say what species it is. I'm going to assume Utah raptor based on what the scale it is with other animals. Obviously not scientifically accurate at all. I mean, this is a clear example of shrink wrapping, much like most of these animals. If you're not familiar with the term shrink wrapping, it's when you take the skeleton of an animal and just sort of lay skin over that, assuming that's what the animal looks like, which is what people often do when finding dinosaur fossils. If you did it with real animals, they wouldn't look like anything what they do today, so I wouldn't recommend doing it with dinosaur bones, because it often results in quite bad designs. But I do think this looks cool, and I like how it's got feathers, and also I like how not just its mouth moves, but its arms. They've got a good amount of articulation. I think you can make some pretty cool poses with this. I like the coloration. I like how the feet have got the claws down. They usually have them up, so that's a bit of a difference. I love the big tail fluff at the end here, this like little plume. I like everything about it, but it is a little bit scientifically inaccurate, as all of these are, but the fact that this one tried to look a bit more scientifically accurate with the feathers and just still failed makes me like it slightly less, so I'm going to rate this a 6 out of 10. On to badly made theropod carnivorous dinosaurs. Starting off, we've got the smallest of the bunch, a Spinosaurus that I think I got in a playset that I got back in possibly 2016, which is quite a while ago, as I think all of you know. it's got quite nice coloration, but it is incredibly scientifically accurate. I mean, it's balancing on its tail. What is this, a kangaroo? You know, and its snout isn't nearly long enough, and it's completely the wrong shape. It doesn't even look like a crocodile, like some people depict it, which is also inaccurate, but slightly more inaccurate in the long term. It looks more like a goose, but it doesn't have a beak, and instead just has a lizard snout there. Honestly, this thing looks awful. And its feet are so weird. I mean, why are they both in completely different positions? I don't think dinosaurs' toes could move inwards to each other like that. Yeah, this is pretty bad. And the arms are tiny as well. I mean, Spinosaurus had massive arms. So yeah, overall I'm rating this figure a 4 out of 10. And that's being nice. On to the best bad figure I have, and probably the most valuable. This is I think, Jurassic Park 3 toy line Polar T-Rex made by Hasbro. This is actually, despite the looks of it, a very cheap toy. I can feel how cheap the plastic is. Hasbro were not the right move to hire. They're better at making board games than dinosaur toys. And the jaw makes this stupid little noise. I don't really like how it's spring-locked. You can't hold it open. It's got this battle damage thing, which I hate, because if you don't have the piece of the battle damaged animal, you can't put it back on. I don't even know how you could put a piece back on there, though, so it's such a small dent. The piece would have to be so thin, it would probably be flimsy. Whoever owned this before probably snapped it. I do like the design of the head, but I think that's more down to how Jurassic Park designed their dinosaurs more than Hasbro. I think if they were making toys for a movie with worse dinosaur designs, this would look bad. So, and the head from front looks ridiculous. I mean, the eyes go inwards so far. You don't really notice it when you're looking at it from the side. It looks kind of cool, but from the front, it looks ridiculous. I mean, imagine if this is what they encountered in Jurassic Park. Does this really look that intimidating to you? No, it looks ridiculous. Moving on, I'm going to rate this a 5 out of 10. Moving on to the big boy. I have no idea what kind of animal this is supposed to be. I genuinely have no idea. Its legs are positioned like human legs. It's not even walking anything like a dinosaur. I mean, this is like, this is like a dinosaur pretending to be a human, It's like, oh, hello, yes, I'm just a normal human doing ordinary human things. My name's Mr. Pilkington. Yeah, and also, obviously, it's doing the thing where it drags its tail on the ground. Incredibly inaccurate. But I think this toy is quite old. I actually noticed that this toy appeared in It Chapter 1, which is a horror movie from 2017. So maybe this is actually a toy from the 80s. Because it was put in that film that's set in the 80s. Or perhaps they weren't bothered enough to get an actual retro-style dinosaur toy. Oh, another thing I noticed is, like, one side it's completely green. The other side, they just skipped out on the paint job and left most of it grey. And the consistency is just not right there, unless this animal's got some weird genetics. But due to the colour of the underbelly, I'm just going to assume they didn't paint this bit, because it's grey. Let me see if it says the species. No. Year? Doesn't say the year. Obviously, it says made in China. Big surprise there. All in all, this animal is quite nostalgic for me, so I can't rate it that low. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. Yeah. Moving on to my favourite of my bad quality dinosaurs. It's a T-Rex. As you can clearly see, a very muscular looking T-Rex. I mean, this is a clear example of shrink wrapping. This T-Rex looks like it's anorexic. It's got no meat on it at all, except for maybe a bit in the belly area. The arms are... Sorry. The arms are an accurate size, actually, compared to the body. The skull is completely the wrong shape. I don't know what this is supposed to be. It looks more like a mammal skull, really. It's got a really bumpy top, which does look cool, but there's no evidence that that's how they looked. This neck is so thin. Again, it looks like it's anorexic. The teeth are really round. They look like bananas, literally, or like some kind of... They look like apples. They're just like big bulbous circles in its mouth. Its nostrils are really wide apart. I hate when they do this because it's nothing like the skeleton. And surely they're aware of that. Its back's got a weird bump on it. I have no idea what that's about. Clearly an example of shrink wrapping, because they're just showing how the bones look. And obviously it's got 2 feet on the ground and its tail as well. So it's inaccurate in that way. But I do actually like the coloration. I like the brown. I think it does look pretty cool for a retro dinosaur. If you were trying to make a dinosaur film that seemed retro, this would probably be what you want your T-Rex to look like. Maybe a green colour, maybe a brown, doesn't really matter. All those films were black and white anyway. I have a soft spot for this one, so I'm going to rate it a very nice 5.5 out of 10. Retro carnivores. You'll notice I put them there very gently because they're quite valuable. Starting off, we have the Dilophosaurus, which looks nothing like it did in the film. So actually, considering modern day science, it's fairly more accurate besides the frill. The frill you're actually able to take it off, so if you want to, you can, and it'll look a bit more scientifically accurate. I'll just demonstrate. See? It's quite large, although it was actually bigger than a Utah raptor. It was a massive thing, so I'd assume this would be a young one if we were going off scientific accuracy. Though I'm sure, considering the size of the baby Dilophosaurus in the actual Jurassic Park, this is probably what an adult's supposed to look like. Although Dominion kind of just disregarded all that and made it so the adults were like that size. So, but who cares about Dominion anyway? Quite a bad film. Yeah, I like this animal. I think it's a very cool old toy, and I remember my grandma used to have some of these toys at her farm. They're great, these old retro toys, and they had one of these. Those toys have since been given off to someone else, but there's something special about this one in particular. The noise still works. Now, I think that might increase its value, even though the voice box sounds a bit drained after, 30 years. So, just have one more listen. Hang on a minute. It also always does it twice. I don't know if that's a feature of the toy or just it glitching out. But, yeah, I guess that's just how it is. Very cool. 8 out of 10. Moving on, we have the JP1 Allosaurus. Obviously a creature that never appeared in the film, so it looks nothing like the modern day design that they've decided upon for Allosaurus in the current films. And I actually have the battle damage piece for this one, if I'm able to take it off. So yeah, that actually is pretty cool if you want to depict it doing battle. I think more of these bits can come out. Yeah, the rib cage can also come out. I don't know why. I suppose if you want them to look like they're fighting each other. Unfortunately, there's another battle damage piece on this one, which is the tail. This is very annoying, as I do not have the piece for the tail, so I suppose this is a zombie Allosaurus. The walking prehistoric dead, I suppose. Anyway, I really like this animal. I think it's cool. I think it's got a cool design. I think it looks intimidating. I think it's a good adversary for the juvenile T-Rex. And, yeah, big thumbs up from me. Next, we have the juvenile T-Rex. Now, this was actually an animal featured in the novel. Its involvement in the novel was quite dark. It was quite a horrendous thing. It was involved in quite a nasty death scene. But, yes, this is the juvenile T-Rex, which actually canonically existed in Jurassic Park in the novel. And a toy was made for it. It's very rubbery, like its adult counterpart, and obviously isn't nearly as good as its adult counterpart, but those things are really expensive. I'm glad I got to pick this up for so little at a toy fair. Yeah, it's got a nice movable mouth on it, although it does have the problem where it just flips back into being closed, which is a little annoying, but that's how the big one worked as well, so there's not much you can do about it. It is pretty cool to have rubber saws here, rubber saws. This also has battle damage. Unfortunately, I do not have the piece for this one, but yeah, I really like this dinosaur, so I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10. Bonus low-quality carnivore, possibly retro. I'll check if there's a year on it. Okay, it's not quite that old. 1989. So yeah, this is technically a retro dinosaur, but it's also a low quality one. This Dilophosaurus is incredibly scientifically inaccurate, obviously dragging its tail and this bright blue coloration all across its body. I mean, no animal looks like this, even today. I mean, massive tongue, no teeth. It looks like like an egg-stealing dinosaur, even though it's supposed to be a Dilophosaurus. Just no words. 3 out of 10. High quality herbivores. We have the lowest quality, high quality one. This old Triceratops that I had for a very long time. Now, personally, I do really like this toy. It's quite nostalgic for me. Its position is quite cool. It looks like it's ramming into something. But to be honest, at this point, it just kind of makes for a good juvenile to my far bigger Schleich one. I'm gonna do these as a joint pairing, although I'll rate them both separately. So, I mean, the difference is, it's a stark contrast. I mean, this is like Tinder profile, real life. That was a bit cringe of me right there. But yeah, so this is the Schleich figure. It's great. It also looks like it's charging, but in possibly a more natural, less overdramatic way. Its horns are a bit bent, which also seems a bit more natural to me. I mean, who gets born with perfectly shaped teeth? Its frill, I think, is a more accurate, in a more accurate position, a bit more bent back, less just facing forwards. And I love the coloration. The red that looks like it's, for attracting mates. It looks a bit like I think it would be a male, while a female would just be pure brown. Yeah, overall, I'm going to give this figure an 8 out of 10, and this figure a 6 out of 10. Very cool. Moving on, we've got the biggest of them all, the Brachiosaurus, the Schleich Brachiosaurus. Now, I do believe its head is more accurate to I think it's Giraffatitan or Giraffatitan. Possibly its name is Anatotitan, I'm not quite sure, but I think the head is less accurate to a Brachiosaurus and more accurate to a slightly larger variety of sauropod, but it is generally accepted as what the head of a Brachiosaurus looks like, so there's nothing I can really do about that. It's got a nice green colouring. It probably blend in quite well with the surrounding trees that it lived in. I really like it. 7 out of 10. Finally, easily my most radical high-quality herbivore. The Therizinosaurus. Quite the devastating thing. I mean, this is scarier than some carnivores. Yeah, it's quite scientifically inaccurate. I don't think it had a big mouthful of teeth that it could open like that. I think it was purely a beak. But if you really close the mouth, it kind of looks like it just has a beak, so it's, it's bearable. Right there, see, that's a bit more scientifically accurate. Very cool claws. Obviously, they're movable. Lovely colouring. I mean, this is great. Overall, 9 out of 10. This high-quality animal. I think this is a Chasmosaurus. I think I just missed this one. Yeah, this is also a high-quality herbivore. The colouring is a little over the top. I don't think this is necessary. I think maybe if it was, the colouring was just around the head. But yeah, overall, I very much like this animal. I like the little spikes on it. 7 out of 10. Since there's only one low-quality herbivore, I decided to lump it in with an extra low-quality carnivore I found. So this, I think, is a Velociraptor. I mean, this is shrink-wrapping at its finest. This literally, there's no muscle here. This just looks like a skeleton with, like, a layer of skin wrapped over it. AKA, shrink-wrapping. I think it's missing... No, it isn't. I mean, it's just terrible. This is awful. If you put feathers on it and made it a bit thicker, it would actually be fairly accurate. I mean, the skull shape's correct. I'll give it that. If this was just a figure to represent a skeleton, I think it would be quite accurate. But because they had to put the skin over it, it looks terrible. This is a very inaccurate but very, very charming Parasaurolophus. I really like it. I like its little bad paint job here. I like its little white spot on its head. It's my mum's favourite dinosaur, and I love it. I think I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it Perry, after Perry the Platypus. Here we have my only retro herbivore, the Pachycephalosaurus from the Lost World range of Kenner toys. Now, personally, I think this is a great toy. It's got a lot of articulation in the arms, and I think it's really held up over age. I mean, there's only slight aging on the paint job on the skull. You see these little bits here. I mean, it's in great condition, and I'm so glad I got it. Only problem is when you flip it around... Oh, wait, yeah, I still have the battle damage bit for this. I forgot. I'm not going to bother... Well, I suppose I could. I'm not going to bother taking it off. It's quite a chore to get it off. But yeah, it's got a wound under there. It's got the little JP logo, just to show you that this is official and not some rip-off. And yeah, this thing's been around longer than my sister. Thing's been around since 1996, you idiot. And it's got quite a cool feature. Obviously, you know, Pachycephalosaurus is famous for ramming into its opponents. Obviously, its neck wouldn't just go inside its body and bang out. It's quite inaccurate, but it's great, and honestly, I couldn't give it anything less than a 9 out of 10. Final section, miscellaneous. First off, we have my Schleich Dimetrodon, which I like very much. I like the green colour palette, I like the little articulatable jaw, I like the position it's in. It looks like it's running, much like a crocodile runs, in that same sort of way, shuffling its feet around. Probably the best known Triassic animal. Not a dinosaur, by the way. This is more closely related to modern day mammals than any dinosaur. Though they both descended from reptiles, which descended from amphibians. I mean, we all come from the same thing, really. Yeah, I very much like this figure. 7 out of 10. Moving on, we have this thing that I've actually forgotten the name of. I think it's got Sucus after its name, but basically it's that thing from Primeval, if you watch that show. It's another animal from before the Triassic. It's very ancient. It's really cool. It's like the saber-toothed tiger before there were saber-toothed tigers, you know. This thing's also more closely related to mammals than anything nowadays. Very cool animal. Very cool. Now moving on to my Postosuchus, which was an ancient Triassic predator. You'll recognise this as the one from Walking with Dinosaurs, because this is literally the figure. Now, I think this might be quite valuable. Very high quality. I love the design. This is one of my favourite toys, and honestly, it's so nostalgic to me as well. It just ticks all the boxes. I'm going to have to give this a 10 out of 10. My two pterosaurs. We have a, a pteranodon here. Not a pterodactyl. Those don't exist. I think can its mouth open? No, its mouth can't open. But yeah, I like this. I think the beak could have done without being yellow, but I suppose it looks quite cool. Obviously, its wings can't flap that much, but they are made of rubbery material, so you can move them a bit. I like the way it stands. You know, you could do a cool saw with this. I think it's quite cool. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Now, this Dimorphodon I actually like quite a lot more. It's in the standing position instead of the flying position, a little unconventional. Massive skull, obviously. This thing's quite scary, to be honest. Would not like to encounter this. Yeah, overall, I'm going to have to give this a solid 7.5 out of 10. Finally, here's a dolphin. Why is this in here?